accusations of foreign plots and warnings of a civil war. Yemen's president promises to restore state authority as rebel fighters seize much of the capital. So where does it leave the new peace deal? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Nick Clark. It's just days since a power-sharing deal was signed in Yemen, but with the ink barely dry, President Rabu Mansour Hadi is already warning of a civil war. The UN-brokered deal was all but dictated by the leader of a Shia armed group. Houthi rebels have taken over much of the capital Sanaa as they seek to redress historical grievances. Abdul Malik al-Houthi hailed the takeover as a successful revolution for all citizens. But Yemen's president has vowed that Sanaa will not fall, and he is hinting at foreign involvement.
At this moment, I feel there is a conspiracy from outside the country's borders, in which several parties have played a role. Some are ones who lost their interests, and others are seeking personal revenge. They are now taking revenge on the country before they take revenge on their enemies. We see all of these blackmailers eating away at the land's resources.
Well, Yemeni authorities have repeatedly accused Iran of backing the Shia Houthi rebels, something the government of Iran denies. But here's what one MP told Parliament, according to the state news agency there. Speaking on Tuesday, Ali Reza Zakani said 3 Arab capitals are in the hands of Iran today, and a 4th one is on the way to join the Islamic Revolution, referring to Beirut, Damascus, Baghdad, and now Sanaa. Well, we'll get the thoughts of our guests in just a moment, but first let's just run through what was agreed in the power-sharing deal. A government of professionals is to be appointed within a month to be inclusive of all elements of society. It calls for a non-partisan prime minister to be appointed within 3 days, along with advisors from the Houthi rebels and the Southern Separatist Movement. But Houthi leaders have refused to sign separate commitments on security, namely to hand back institutions they've seized and to give up their weapons. All right, let's take this on. Let me introduce you to our guests. Joining us from London, Mohammed Kabati, a former advisor to the past 3 prime ministers of Yemen and former Yemeni ambassador to Lebanon and Cyprus. From Jeddah, we have Khalid Al-Maina, editor-in-chief of the Saudi Gazette and former Saudi TV news anchor. And also in London, we have Adam Barron, a freelance journalist formerly based in Yemen and a political analyst focusing on Arab affairs. Very good to see you all here, gentlemen. An interesting, complex subject to discuss. Ambassador Kabati, could I start with you? Let's just assess the current position on the ground the best we can. We have reports of ministers' homes being raided, but fuel cuts being implemented. What is the current state of play as far as you know in the capital?
Well, it's rather disappointing that the accord which was signed by all parties concerned, nobody's, especially the Houthis, are not sticking to it. And it looks it's faltering, and that's why the president today has started speaking about this conspiracy theory, and he's warning of a breakdown of order and going into anarchy, and then we might just go into an all-out civil
war. But there are reports of the fuel cuts being implemented.
There
are reports of the fuel cuts being implemented. I appreciate there's no, at this point, there's no sign of a prime minister being appointed. But wherein lies the momentum for that?
Well, actually, what's happening on the ground, you know, the security and are not actually the security is not in the hands of the people who should be looking after it, unfortunately. And that's why this has made. Why should the president go and start speaking about the danger of a civil war and of a conspiracy, external, internal? If things are sticking, because he was very happy with the signing of the Accord of National Partnership and Peace, and the 10 ambassadors were happy about it. Everybody, Europe, the European Union, the United States. But why should the president start speaking about that? I myself do not subscribe to this theory of conspiracy, but it looks for me as if, and I'm wondering if Yemen is now on the verge of a new exercise, you know, of what we call, at one time Condoleezza Rice coined this term of anarchy or creative anarchy. remember in 2006. Is Yemen being taken as an example for applying such a theory? That's what I'm wondering. You know, I've tweeted this morning on someone commented on recently.
Indeed, I saw that. I saw that. Let's just pose this to Adam Barron first of all in London. Yemen's president talks of this spectre of foreign plots. What do you make of that, Adam?
I think in the end we're seeing mixed signals from Yemen's government, and for that matter, a lot of diplomats as well. It was quite notable that this agreement was signed with massive fanfare and celebration from all sides, at least publicly. And now to have, for example, the president going and speaking of conspiracy, and UN envoy Gamal Ben Omar speaking with fear and anger about the breakdown of order in Sanaa, it makes you wonder. It's almost as if they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. I also think it was interesting to note that the president mentioned his fears of Sanaa being lost. Let's face it, speak to anyone on the ground in Sanaa, and Houthi militias are essentially the ones controlling things on the ground. Indeed, even the United States Embassy right now, according to friends I've spoken to there, is guarded by Houthi militias.
Well, that's right, because Hadi insists that Sanaa will not fall, but it has already, effectively, hasn't it?
Ostensibly, from the words of the people I speak to on the ground, it sounds as if Sanaa, if it hasn't fallen, there's certainly a new power in town. So it was an odd statement for Hadi to make, because let's face it, if you look at what happened on Sunday, you effectively had arms of the Yemeni security services, whether the interior minister or others, encouraging members of the security forces to cooperate with Houthi militias in establishing order. Let's not forget that these are the same militias that the state fought with for 6 years, who maintain I would say that any cooperation would, ultimately be tenuous at best.
All right, let's go to Jeddah now. Khalid Al-Mayina, what's your view? How is this situation being viewed from Saudi and the president's remarks?
Well, I think the president's remark was very conflicting. As was said before, that it says Sanaa hasn't fallen, but the Houthis are controlling strategic locations, the American embassy, they're going into homes and all. And I think we view the whole situation as very disturbing, because for obvious reasons, Yemen has a borderline with Saudi Arabia. It's a very porous border. Anything could have any conflict there could have a spillover. We have the Hajj coming. We have pilgrims from all the world. So I think for the Saudis, we view it as a situation that at best in a wishful way could go away, but it's not. It's a reality. And I think also this is the result of years of neglect by Yemen's neighbors not to set up institutions. But the Yemenis cannot go on blaming foreign conspiracies or internal conspiracies, because they themselves did not build something. And especially after the last agreement, when everybody heaved a sigh of relief that something could happen, all this has happened, and we hope that this will stop, but I don't think so. I think the struggle is going to go on, and for a long time.
Ambassador Kubati, just to recap on what we were talking about a little bit earlier, from what Iran's a close ally of Iran's supreme leader said, 3 Arab capitals are in the hands of Iran today, and a 4th one is on the way to join the Islamic Revolution. That's according to Iran's news agency. He's referring to Sanaa, of course. Do you suspect Iranian involvement in this?
Well, I think the president, you have got to take as a whole, his comment when he spoke, Sanaa will not fall, but at the same time, he said it's on the verge of a civil war. I think I might see, and that's what I've been seeing, that it looks as if we are, the events of the past 1 week, as if it is the beginning of a sequence, which is quite worrying. Are we on, a pathway which is going to take all involved, whether global and regional powers, as well as local powers.
But let me just jump in there. When he's talking about this, the foreign plots, this conspiracy, who is he referring to?
Well, you have mentioned Iran. Iran directly is mentioned there, right. is meant to be there, because he has more than once denoted that there were 5 members of Hezbollah who are now in in the prison cells of the security apparatus, one of the security organizations. There were some people as well who were being caught in one of the ships which were shipping a lot of arms and rockets to Yemen, and they were Iranians. And the Houthis have been pressing to get those people out. So, but I think he also means what is happening from the other global and local or regional forces, because I think the whole thing, if you subscribe to this theory of conspiracy, it looks as if everything is in the process of the whole area, including Yemen, is entering, and I mean Yemen here, entering into a very dark and murky meddling of its affairs, whereby I think it will end up in a civil war. And we'd like to, and I think the president is reminding others now from our recent history, memorable history. This has been all the time quite harming to the people who have been. I mean, the experience of the Egyptians and the Ottomans is very much, should be kept in mind. They left the country very much injured and harmed.
Right. Adam Barron, to what degree do you think the former president is causing problems here? How much is he stirring the mix, as it were, Ali Abdullah Saleh?
I think that when it comes down to what's happened recently, there's a lot of talk about foreign involvement. There's a lot of talk about President Saleh's involvement. But when I look at the Houthis' successes, I think on the ground, the reason the Houthis have been able to achieve such dramatic successes is the fact is they've managed to outplay almost every other political player in Yemen. And whether that's in forming an alliance of convenience with the former president, whether that's monopolizing on general grievances with the transitional process and the frustrations of the average Yemeni. I mean, it comes in a number of forms, but I think the greatest strength for the Houthis is not coming from some alliance with President Saleh, or for that matter, some sort of support from Iran, even if that exists, even if that support does exist. The real
Mohammed Kabati, I'll come to you in just a second. I'll come to you, my friend. Absolutely, I'll come to you in just a second. Adam, just finish your point very briefly, and we'll return to the ambassador after that.
Yes. All right, no, I'm just saying that the Houthis' rise has come from a variety of sources, but the essential thing is this is, love them or hate them, they've demonstrated that they know what they're doing, and they're a smart political power that remains one to be reckoned with, and a smart military and tribal power that has demonstrated the ability to take on the force of the Yemeni political mainstream.
Okay, Mohammed Kabati?
I think the Houthis were not smart and outplayed others. I think there were some defects in the GCC initiative from the beginning to leave a man like Ali Abdullah Saleh and Ali Muhsin Ahmar and the sheikhs, the sons of the sheikhs of Abdullah bin Hussein al-Ahmar. These people have caused a real fragmentation of the whole coalition which took power after the revolution of 2011. And this appeared after we finished the National Dialogue Conference. It was appeared that these people are at loggerhead. So the whole authority in the center was getting cracked and it was collapsing. And the Houthis have managed to fill this vacuum. There was a vacuum which was created by the ongoing skirmishes between the different powers which took a very big role for one time. But I think after the NDC finished, these people should have given away part of their power. And here comes the significance of the global players and the local players that did not at all take attention of that. We have been speaking about that. Okay. These people are playing.
I want to take that. I want to take that. I'm sorry to jump in. We have to move on. We have to move on. I wanted to take that point to Jeddah, to Khalid Al-Mayina. What role does Saudi have in this, and how does Saudi perceive what's going on?
Well, the Saudis have always played a role in Yemen for all over the years, primarily for the reason to see that any kind of settlement, a stable Yemen is very important for Saudi Arabia. Now, yes, of course, as the ambassador said before, that the struggle between Ali Abdullah Saleh and the other people and all is causing problem. He's asked for global intervention. And I would sort of disagree with us, because many of the Arabs are now blaming the Egyptian and the Ottoman Empire and the Sykes-Picot and all. But I truly believe that the Houthis outsmarted them, not because Iran was supporting them, it may be doing so, or it is doing so, but because of the vacuum that exists. And as even the Minister of Interior told his personnel not to sort of have any objection for any takeover. I think the main problem of Yemen right now are its very own leaders, its very own people. You can blame anyone, you can blame the GCC, you can blame Iran or whatever it is, but I truly believe that there is no statesman in Yemen, no politician willing to pick up the cudgel and say Yemen's interest comes first. Nobody does that, and that's why they're in this confusion.
Ambassador Kubati, just in 30 seconds respond to that,
yes.
And then we'll move on.
Yes, because I do disagree with my friend in Jeddah, because the Yemenis have come out of a historical document. You know, the National Dialogue Conference came out with outcomes which are greatly actually addressing the whole issues of Yemen over the past 100 years even. But because the international and the regional powers did not want, they were siding with these people inside. They didn't want to remove Ali Abdullah Saleh. They have allowed him to come back. They didn't want these people should have been, the whole setup of the GCC initiative should have meant that these people gradually leave. Even the UN Security Council resolutions, they have mentioned that power was not moved to the new people who came. The president didn't have any power because these players continued to play and muddle with all what's going on, and they aimed at creating anarchy because they were against the outcomes of the National Dialogue Conference. And I wonder if our friends, our brothers in the GCC, were actually, do they want to see a federal Yemen? Do they want to see a new modern state built on law and order and citizenship, and whereby we in the South have got 50% of the share and real partnership in power and wealth?
Khaled Al-Mihdham, what do you say to that?
Well, I think I agree with you. I think even the GCC should come out very openly, and I think there should be an open discussion in front of the public, in front of the Yemenis and all, and not read in newspapers about coordination and cooperation between the GCC and the Yemeni authorities. I think it's high time that everyone comes out of the closet, speaks out, and see, because a strong Yemen is very essential. It's a very disturbing thing that's going on, not for us in Saudi Arabia, but for the GCC, for other areas, even for across the sea in Ethiopia and other places. So the ambassador is right in a way that you have to. And I think, personally, I think with Ali Abdullah Saleh coming back, people in the Arab world do not want to let power go. And this is a problem. He may not be there, but acting like a mafia don doesn't help the Yemeni state any good.
Okay, well, Yemen, very important, as you say, not least because of something that we haven't mentioned up to this point, and that is Al-Qaeda. Adam Barron, we've seen in Iraq how ISIL took advantage of political instability there. This situation right now, is that something that's going to play to Al-Qaeda's advantage in Yemen?
I think it's possible for Al-Qaeda to capitalize on this situation. You're bringing in instability, and Al-Qaeda thrives on instability. And there's also, even though I would push back on any attempt to make this a Sunni-Shia battle, the fact is that if you look at the statements that Al-Qaeda and the Arabian Peninsula supporters are saying, they're trying to make this into a religious war. So I think there is a dangerous potential of Al-Qaeda capitalizing on this instability. But that being said, I think it's only one part of the issue. And I think focusing in on the Al-Qaeda element too much misses the forest for the trees, because at the end of the day, any benefits that Al-Qaeda could potentially take from this would be a result of instability that can only be solved by focusing on governance issues and creating a larger degree of stability throughout Yemen.
But from the point of view of the Houthis, the Houthi leader has vowed that he will go after Al-Qaeda, so it is going to be a very big part of what goes on here.
Yeah, I think if you look at the problem of Al-Qaeda from Abdul Malik al-Houthi's standpoint, this is someone whose group has been labeled public enemy #1 perhaps by Al-Qaeda. So he does have interest in going after Al-Qaeda and providing a measure of security in areas under his control, especially because at this point the Houthis have something to prove. They have to prove that they can provide governance. And so really it's this I guess really the burden is on them at this point.
And Ambassador Kubati, Houthis, enemies of Al-Qaeda, and the influence, I guess, of the Houthis will be an assurance to the United States.
Well, I think this is, you see, the conspiracy theories sometimes stick to this point. You know, somebody has pushed the Houthis to be on stage. Okay, now you're getting the moderate Sunni turning to the extreme. So you'll have a confrontation between something perhaps we might see, and I see the Islamic State in Yemen being started, and then you have the same sort of events, chain of events which has been created in North Iraq and eastern Syria, and then you have got an international coalition of starting to bombard Yemen and control. And that's why people are speaking that they are starting to believe in this conspiracy theory that this is being created so that there is a change in the whole map of the Middle East, and we end up with the map, which has been more than one map, which has been drawn, saying that the country, the whole area is coming. And Saudis are very much, in this map. You might have seen it if you have tweeted me, if you have tweeted, seen what I've tweeted today, because Saudi Arabia is meant, and the Iranians are saying the Saudis should not be allowed to stay married to two sisters. The religious shrines in Mecca and Medina, and at the same time the oil wealth in Najd.
Khaled Al-Meina, let's give Khaled Al-Meina the opportunity to respond to that.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard of the Iranians saying that. I believe the strength and stability of every country comes from within. And since all the political power failures in Yemen are the cause of its own root problems, as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, and I say it very openly, it's in the interest of Saudi Arabia to see political stability and economic stability around them because of the spillover effect. It's a nightmare for us to have Iraq in the doldrums, to have the Gulf, God forbid, with problems. Yemen is already there, Syria. So we don't want to be surrounded by a sea of instability. And this is why it's important for us that, the accusations that the Saudis are interfering. Yes, we have been involved in Yemen. We were there during the Yemen war. Nobody can deny that. We have been involved also in the building of Yemen. But the main problem with Yemen is the tribal problems, is the fight, and also, and it's not even a Sunni Shia, I think, right now. The Houthis are also being supported by many ordinary Yemenis because the Al-Qaeda specter is really frightening. So with the Americans, as the ambassador said, are going to give a green approval for the Houthis to get rid of Al-Qaeda, it creates a new equation. And with these new equations, there are no political people with political acumen and leadership in Yemen or even around Yemen in some of the states to handle the situation. So we end up by just talking about foreign conspiracies, the Ottoman Empire, the Sykes-Picot, or even the Schleswig-Holstein issue. They don't fit in. It's the problem from within the Arab world, the GCC, the Arab League.
Okay, I'm going to jump in there because we're just running out of time. Ambassador Kubati, do you have any room for optimism in this current scenario?
Yes, if people stick to the signed accord of peace and national partnership, and following that start to implement the outcomes of the NDC, then we are on the right road towards stability in the region, and that will help our regional brothers as well as our global partners.
Gentlemen, that's all we've got time for. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there, but do appreciate your time and your contributions to the programme. Mohammed Kubati and Adam Barron in London and Khaled Al-Meina in Jeddah. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for watching. Do please feel free to add your voice to this discussion. You can leave your comments on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. We're also on Twitter, of course. Look for @AJ Inside Story. I'm Nick Clark. From me and all the team, bye for now.